So my last day in office was in end of March 2020, which was peak of the pandemic. And I was like, wow, I left a very cool company with an amazing position to start entrepreneurship, and the world is ending tomorrow, basically. Or like, what the hell did I do?
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Off to the Valley, a podcast that brings to light the incredible stories of those who left the familiarity of home for new horizons. I'm your host, Pratik Panda, always curious and eager to share these journeys of courage and determination. Today, we are delighted to have Alessio Pieroni join our podcast. Alessio is the founder of Scale for Impact, a marketing agency dedicated to growing online education businesses. With a decade of experience in the e learning space, his journey is one of resilience, passion, and remarkable achievements. During his tenure at Mindvalley as the Chief Marketing Officer, Alessio helped scale the company from $25 million to about $75 million in revenue. And in 2020, he founded Scale for Impact, which in just 2 years has collaborated with renowned authors like Tony Robbins, Jordan Peterson, and many more. His agency excels in building funnels, creating content, scaling advertising spends, and launching New York Times bestsellers. As an Italian global citizen, Alessio has been traveling the world for the past 7 years. His mission is to revolutionize online education by consulting with top authors globally. From a corporate job at Apple to founding a successful agency, his journey is truly inspiring, and that's what we will get to learn more about in this episode. Alessio, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Well, wow, what a great intro. Thanks.
So talking about great intros, you've had a great journey. Tell us a little bit more about your background. Where did you grow up? And why did you decide to move out of your homeland?
Well, I grew up in a small town in Italy, one town that maybe if you come from abroad, it will look like one of those Game of Thrones town, like very medieval, very cute, very nice. And frankly, I've been a mama's boy, like most of the Italians, for my first 20 years. And what happened is that when I was 20, I figured out, wow, I don't speak English. And that's embarrassing. I need to figure that out. And luckily enough, I was in uni, I was in an organization that was international, and they were organizing different travels around the world where you could volunteer in different locations. And back then I say, hey, you know what? In India, they speak English. Let's go to India. And so my first trip alone, my first trip without my family or friends, I went to India in
That's amazing.
a remote region in Gujarat, in Baroda. Stayed there for 6 weeks. I completely changed my life. It opened up my eyes on, wow, so many different things, so many different people around the world. Started to get my first international friends, and I realized, wow, now I feel home in this environment. And that kind of gave me a good slap on the face, made me realize there is so much more than what I've been living till now. And that's was definitely one of the biggest inspiration and motivation that kickstarted my journey. After that, I went back to India for a year in Bangalore. From there, what you mentioned, I went to Apple, I went to Mindvalley, lived in London, Malaysia, and now living in Spain for the past 3 years. So it's been quite a ride. I would say that it all started when I just didn't know English and I needed to figure out how to learn it.
That's amazing. And I know it's interesting that you mentioned, you didn't know English, and that's probably not the first thing that comes to mind for people, like, let's go to India. What, what was the thought process there in saying that, okay, let's go explore India?
I was frankly very naive. Like most of all my friends will go to London to be dishwashers because that's what Italians do. And I was like, oh, come on, that's so boring. I don't want to be a dishwasher. Let me do something else. And I just felt, hey, you know what? In India, people speak English because they were a colony, so let's do it. I didn't know about accents. I didn't know these other things. I was just like, yeah, let's just do it. And it's funny that I have a very strong Italian accent. But for
Mhm.
the first year in which I was actually talking in English, I was talking with a mix of Italian and Hindi accents. And it was fantastic. So yeah, it was very naive. And frankly, having a bit of this naivety and going out for an adventure, it's one of those most beautiful things, right? That
That's
allow you
amazing.
to discover your courage, to discover so many more things that you wouldn't have discovered if I would have all these preconcepts in my head about
Hmm.
where should I go to learn English or which country should I visit next, right? So that was really
You try to preserve that feeling inside you, because the thing is, when we are younger, the naivety comes more naturally, and you are more willing to explore. As you grow older, as you've had more experience, it is hard to keep that child alive in you, if for the lack of a better example. Now that you've experienced that the naivety actually helped you get so many new experiences, do you consciously try something to preserve that?
wow. It's interesting because I was having this discussion this week with my therapist, and it challenged me a lot on that because it was telling me exactly what you say is that in a lot of things you've done in your life, you and good because you let your own child take control. When is the last time you did that? When is the last time that you say, hey, you know what, my inner child wants to do this, let's do it. And that's something that I need to remember a bit more often. It's obvious that when you pay salaries of other team members and stuff, it's a bit more difficult to say, hey, you know what, let's discover Zimbabwe. It's obviously a bit more difficult to do that, and you have a bit more responsibilities. But on the other hand, it's something that maybe in different proportion and in different ways, I'm challenging a bit more myself lately to do it again. Yeah.
That's amazing. Talking about teammates, I
Oh,
wanted to know, what is it like working with Alessio? What kind of boss, manager, leader you are?
I would say this, that I think I try to be human. That's where everything starts to me. I believe that a lot of people are a lot more into, oh, a boss should be like this, a leader should be like that. I try to be a lot more human. I'm reading Radical Candor, and one of the things where I really find myself in the concept of the book is about the concept of caring personally. I really believe that if you don't care personally for the person that you're working with, it's very difficult to be a great leader, no matter how skilled you are in leadership techniques or
Yeah,
management or any tools that you have. I think it all starts from there, and that's what I try to do for my team. The other thing is, I think the team needs to know that I got their back, and that's something that I always try to bring it up. And at the same time, this is something that we've been discussing a lot with my team lately, and we decided to have this sentence in defining who we are. We are not a family. We are a
mhm,
sport team in the sense that maybe I'm a bit more like the coach. I like to look myself as the Ted Lasso of the situation. We're a team that needs to perform because
mm,
obviously I can have your back and care personally, but if you're not performing and our clients are not happy with what we deliver, obviously the relationship will work. So
yeah,
it's important to know that you're not a family because I will never fire my brother or my mom, right?
yeah.
But we are in a situation where we need to perform and we need to give our best. And I think that as Ted Lasso, I really love that series. It tried to get the best out of each person, but then in the other end, you need to win championship. You need to do well also from a performance point of view. And that's what I believe is something to remember as well.
That's amazing. Tell me a little bit more about your move to Mindvalley, your time there, and particularly in Malaysia.
Yeah, I moved there when I was 26, and I think I already changed 2, 3 jobs, and I really couldn't find my way. When I was in India, I was a journalist. When I was in UK in Apple, I was a recruiter, and I hate my job. And it's so difficult, especially in our generation, to look at other people enjoying their life, having great career, getting promotion, and you're there stuck. They want to kill yourself because you need to do the most boring job ever. And at the moment, I say, look, if I need to live like this, that people think I'm successful because I work for Apple. But on the other hand, I'm dying inside and I'm 26. I'm like, I prefer to go on the other side of the world in a company that looks incredible and where I'm sure I'll find myself.
Mm.
And that's exactly what I did. I literally cut my salary by almost 80% to go. My mom was like, okay, you're nuts. What are you doing? There is no sense you're going for an unknown company in the middle of Malaysia. And I got hired as a project manager. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. It's just like, okay, cool, let me manage. And then I realized quickly that that project management was basically marketing. And then I was like, you know what? I like this. Let me do more. And that has been game changing because what was great about my experience there is I always found an environment that allowed me to innovate. And I really fell in love with marketing. And so every day before going to office for 2 hours, I will study. And then I will go to the office and I'll say, hey, I learned about this thing. Can we do it? And they'll be like, why not? Try it. And then I will try and it was very well. It was a playground basically. And for me, it was amazing because I could test out things, theories that I just learned and ideas and stuff on millions of. And I was just like, wow, that's amazing. I can change people's lives by doing these little changes and stuff. And frankly, using it as a playground and using it as a fun environment, it allowed me to understand what was good, what was bad, which marketing tactic worked, which didn't, figuring out the why, and then playing around with a lot of other team members because the team there is incredible to really takes everything to the next. That's really what was a game changer for me. And obviously, these started bringing results, and then promotion after promotion allowed me to do a very quick career inside the organization. And as you say, to become chief marketing officer at 29, literally 2 years and a half after being completed also what I needed to do in my life to become chief marketing.
That's amazing. Did you call your mom after
My mom still doesn't fully understand what I do,
that?
but she's okay now.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about you had an incredibly quick growth at Mindvalley, and you did mention that part of that was you were learning a lot of new things, you're bringing new ideas, running new experiments, and I'm sure that's what the company started seeing as well, and you started bringing more results. Can you share a few of your learnings from that time that maybe was very interesting for you? I know you like to talk a lot about funnels and how do you optimize them and so on, but anything that you still remember from those days that stood out for you, or like you tried an experiment and you were like, oh wow, I didn't really know this would work. So
So I would say I've done different things inside my valley that were interesting. I think in 2017, we were one of the first company to adopt chatbots on Facebook when literally they came out a few weeks before. And just to understand how crazy was that thing, it was like I Googled this chatbot thing because I've heard it in a few places. I tried to figure out how can you create a chatbot, and I figured out, oh, I don't need to code. I can do it myself. Fantastic. Let me do it. And then I created it, and I connected the first chatbot to a sub brand that Mindvalley used to have that was kind of forgotten by everyone else. And I went to the all ends meeting. These are a meeting with 300 people that they do. And I say, can I speak 5 minutes? I want to show them of a little project I did. They give me 5 minutes. And then I say, guys, this is the future. I created a chatbot. It's already connected to this page. Go and play around with that. And everyone was like, this guy's a genius. What did you do? Oh my goodness. But that was the thing. It's just like a game, right? It was, yeah, let me try, let's do this. And then, can you do this for my money? Can you do this for that? And then it was one of the first things where people started to see, this guy is smart. He can do things. He's tech savvy. He can put things together. And then after that, this allowed me to move a bit more to a role that was a bit more as a growth hacker because I created a bit more of a brand of being a disruptor and going to new technologies. So this allowed me to do tons of tests. And basically my role was about doing tests with all different departments and pushing them to innovate. And right in that moment, one of the major things that happened was that Mindvalley developed a new technology that was named Quest. So the entire idea is that they used to have courses, which was self-paced learnings basically, and Quest, which is basically similar type of course, but the difference is that it will start on a specific date and you will go through the learnings with a community and on a separate technology. And what was interesting is that the quests were selling so well, and the courses were not selling as well as Quest. But what was even more interesting is that all our advertising strategy was focused around courses, and we weren't advertising for the Quest. The reason why was because whenever you advertise, you want to have something continuously over time so that you can scale up and improve. While Quest being starting in once every 6 months or once a year, you couldn't really scale them up as much as we wanted. And the classic thing that was happening there was that everyone was like, let's transform Quest into courses and advertise. And I remember that Vision was so against this idea. And everyone was like, Vision is, he doesn't understand this. He's killing the company, something like that. And I was like very confused because it was clear that these new Quests were great products. So why didn't he want to advertise them? And then I did something that, funny enough, no one did. And I simply went to Vision and say, Vision, I'm very saying this. Why don't you want to advertise this Quest? And it's like, look, it's pretty simple. I really believe that the entire customer experience changes when people have a community or when people start on the same day. They'll achieve much better results than they do in a course. And if you just do the same experience as a course, the customer experience will go so much down that this entire technology wouldn't be as powerful as it is at the moment. And that changed because it was like, so it's not that you don't want to advertise, it's just that you don't want to lose the customer experience. So if I found an idea that would allow us to advertise this, would you be open to test it out? And it's like, yeah, sure. And then I started working with my team and we come up with an idea of how can we recreate an entire calendar for Quest and making them run every single month. And it was a crazy test in the beginning, but funny enough, we figured out that even if we were taking a normal course and transforming it into a Quest, it will sell 30%. So that basically means if you take a course and you give it a community and you give it a start date so that people have a sort of urgency to start that kind of course, you can grow your sales by 30%. That was insane. I literally did this test. I went to Vision, to the entire exec team, and everyone was like, and from there we started a vision that Mindvalley shouldn't sell any more courses. It should sell just Quest because it should completely change the thing. And then we literally revolutionized the entire company then because we were able to take the entire courses to the next level, to improve a lot of the sales, to have a lot more Quest on advertising. And I think that what I always say is that when I started in Mindvalley, we were spending $100,000 a month, more or less, on advertising. When I left, we were spending over $3 million a month profit. And that was a scale that obviously was behind the big growth that you were talking about. It all started with this simple idea, with this simple test. But more than that, it started with really understanding your stakeholders. Because sometimes there are blockers and you're like, oh, this person doesn't want it. Why? What don't they want exactly? Because there is no one here that doesn't want to grow. There is no one here that doesn't want to take their company to the next level, right? Everyone wants it. So it's all about understanding if they have a feeling that certain things might kill the current status quo. And that was what exactly was happening there. That was such a beautiful experience. I've learned so much. I have so many of these other stories that I've learned over the year. Yeah.
That is amazing, Alessio. Thanks a lot for sharing that. And you brought about the aspect of community, which I think is absolutely essential, both in personal lives as well as professional. And more businesses are also now starting to realize that building communities around their products helps make it more sticky, helps increase adoption. You've experienced that with your growth in sales as well. But talking about community on the personal side as well, I've moved around a lot to different countries, different parts of the world. And one of the first challenges always is starting to build a new community around you. You move to India, you move to Malaysia, both like Asian countries are very heavy on community and typically have a close knit group of people that they spend a lot of time with. as somebody new into that ecosystem, how did you go about building a community of people you would want to spend more time with and learn from and so on?
It's very interesting because I actually find that this was much easier in my early 20s than it is now. Creating a friendship requires so much energy, it's so much give and take, right? And then someone just moves out, or you move out somewhere else. And all these things that you invest in a friendship, just know that it goes away, but obviously the friendship slowly starts fading if you don't keep in contact. Out of 50 friendship you'll make, you'll probably be able to keep in contact very well with 5, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a big topic. What I would say is that for me, it was very important to figure out how can I make friendship with people that have my same values, my same interests, and can go from that point of view. And I was discussing with a friend of mine that I don't feel any more Italian. If I could choose, I would probably drop my passport to join the expat nation. It's interesting that I feel a lot more connected with an Indian that worked in 5 different countries and now is living in Barcelona rather than with an Italian that never left Italy, even though I grew up there for 23 years. And that's interesting because sure, those are my roots, but my life, my values, what I believe in, my interests are a lot more in common with an Indian that traveled the world than with an Italian that never moved. That's kind of also what I try to do in the different trips in the different countries where I go. How can I find people that have similar interests? And obviously, Mindvalley was a fantastic community already by itself. So it was very easy to create friendship, to contact people that don't know Mindvalley. There are about 300 people that work for the company from 60 different countries.
Oh, wow.
So it's sort of a united nation, basically, all together, and everyone between 25 and 35. So very young team, very easy to make friendship. I found my wife in Mindvalley's team. So it's a very cool environment and it's easy to create friendship there. But when I went to Barcelona, I started having a very different challenge because most of all my clients are in the United States. My team is completely remote. And so I literally didn't have any way to people in Barcelona. And for the first couple of years, I had this problem. And last year, I simply say, you know what, stop with this crap. I need to find my people. And that's why I joined the EO, Entrepreneur Organization, which is a fantastic community for entrepreneurs. I've learned so much from so many people there. But on top of that, I create so many deep relationship with people that, again, like me, they come from other countries, they travel the world. Some of them are local, but even them, they have an international mindset. And it's very much easier to create this kind of friendship, create this kind of community, and feel home no matter where I go. So that has been a very beautiful aspect for sure.
That's amazing. And thanks a lot for sharing about EO as well, Entrepreneur Organization. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are founders who move around a lot. Definitely they would find this helpful. I will also go check it out because I haven't heard a lot about it and looks like it's a pretty large community.
About 20,000 people all over the world, all
That's amazing.
entrepreneurs that need to make more than $1 million, I think. So it's also qualified on a certain level.
Yeah.
And that really allow you to, find a great community.
That's amazing. Tell us a little bit about Scale for Impact, your current company. There's a little bit about it, but I also want to know that you started this almost at the peak of the pandemic. What was going on in your mind as you were thinking of doing business at that stage in life?
Look, it's such a crazy story. It's a story of resilience as well, because I resigned Valley in January 2020. And the world was normal and simply I was done with my journey there and I felt I wanted to test out some entrepreneurship. And then I had that 3-month notice period. So my last day in office was in end of March 2020, which was peak of the pandemic. And I was like, wow, I left a very cool company with an amazing position to start entrepreneurship and the world is ending tomorrow, basically. Or like, what the hell did I do? And it was interesting because my thought at that time was actually very clear. It's like, I will do everything besides starting an agency, I will never start an agency. I don't like it. And this was because, again, I never came from an agency setting. I came a lot more from working for the client, and I worked with a lot of agencies that I didn't like. So I was like, I don't want to be one of them. And so what happened there was that I said, I will start a startup and I will work on that. And in between, just to make some money, I'll consult for anyone that needs some consultancy in online education. And then what happened was that obviously with the pandemic, so many companies, even they were offline, needed to go online. And a lot of people, as soon as they started hearing that I left Mindvalley, they brought me, they're like, can you help us? So I started doing a lot of projects for people during the pandemic because they needed, and online education was booming at the moment. And funny enough, my consulting became bigger and bigger. My startup project became smaller and smaller, till a moment in which I needed to start hiring people to make sure that they could stay and that they could grow and I could sustain their consulting. And then I figured out that I was always recommending the same freelancers for copywriting, for design, for video, for stuff, till when I said, you know what, this just doesn't work. Let's bring it all together and let's take this freelancer that I always recommend and make them part of my team. And I'm an agency. There is nothing wrong with that. So it really started very organic. And I was lucky enough that obviously I had a very strong expertise in what I'm doing that allowed me to start like that. And basically from them, it developed a lot. It developed on things that we can do, that where we want to go, the people we work with. And right now our vision is to be the marketing team of the best online educators in the world. Like especially educators that don't want to hire their own team, they want to have experts that can do things for them and have been doing for years and years. That's what me and my team do. And it has been a fantastic journey. I've learned so much because, again, I was very new to the agency world. And it has been such a great learning. I always felt that I was an entrepreneur inside, and in all of things, I think I would. But I also figured out that entrepreneurship is so much more difficult than what I thought from outside. I understood a lot more my bosses, my CEOs, entrepreneurs that I used to work before, and on how much stress they needed to. And especially it's been super important to understand how, as an entrepreneur, you need to have your own support system. You need to take care of your mental health. You need to take care of so many things because it is tough. It's lonely,
Yeah.
entrepreneur. And if you don't have that support system, you can implode very easily.
What do you do to alleviate that stress? And I know being a founder before and even now as an executive, I keep telling people that as an entrepreneur, that you experience a lot of highs and the highs are very high, but the lows are terribly low. So if you can't get yourself back up, you'll never experience the highs either. You will see a lot more lows than you see the highs or experience the highs. So what are you doing to help you reduce your stress and keep that sort of environment of support around you?
You really touched the right point here. At least to me, the most difficult part was dealing with what I call the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. Because really, one day you feel the king, and the day after you feel the worst person in the world. For me, I think I was 1 year and a half in, and I overhired a bit in my team. And then there was a down moment in our agency, and then I needed to fire 2-3 people. That was one of the toughest moments that I've ever experienced. It's literally, I don't know if I was burnout, I don't know if I was in some specific thing, but definitely the level of anxiety, the level of stress that I had for that decision was so big. And obviously we were able to do it in a way in which the people were safe, we found them another job, but we was able to make it in a nice way. But I really felt so bad. And I understood that I needed to figure out how to deal with the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. I made the biggest investment in my life to hire a coach that will help me navigate through that. And I think that a big part of that has been touching my own self-worth from the revenues I was making in my company.
That's amazing.
What more towards this month we've done very well, and like, oh, the team has done very well this month rather than I'm the best. Or things are not going well. It's like, need to improve the team in doing that. So specifically, I worked with a coach back then. I'm working with a therapist right now. And to me, keeping things in check, even when things are going amazing, like this is an amazing period, for example, keeping it in check and always having someone that question me and allow me to think, have that hour every week to make sure that I can do that is invaluable. Absolutely.
That's amazing. In fact, you brought out a very good point that I think over the last couple of years, having gone to therapy myself, I realized that it is even more important to work with a coach or a therapist during your best times. Then it kind of seems obvious to get help when you are at your worst, but it is amazingly game changing when you are able to work with someone when you are seeing the best days to realize what is really bringing you the best days. And a lot of that sort of carries forward during the tougher times. Alessio, you've spent time in Asia, so you're back to Barcelona now, back to Europe. There is a significant difference in work culture in both of these places. And a lot of people like the European style or the European dream is really one part of it that I envy once in a while is it's more laid back. So work is important, but spending time with family, taking time for yourself is probably even more important. And versus in Asia, a lot of us, like having grown up over there, we give a lot of importance to work. We work insane hours, and that often comes with a compromise on a variety of different things. As you've spent time in both of these places, are there some pieces of cultural learnings that you're taking from different places?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Funny enough, I never worked in a European environment because I was saying I work in UK, that's not really European, and then I worked in Asia, and now I'm having my own company. But all my previous experience has been non-European. I never worked in Italy, right? So I think I'm a lot more international in my approach. Especially because working with US clients, there is always also a time zone aspect that it's important, being in Europe. Um, but what's interesting to me is what I adore about Asia is that you guys have really that hunger. And I really think that that's been lost in Europe. That kind of hunger is really missing a bit. And that's probably one of the number one things I'm actually looking for when I hire. Or people that are like quick, smart, hunger that can go from that point of view. Obviously, at the same time, we talk a lot about mental health. And I believe that having a good amount of hours and taking care and taking holidays and creating that kind of environment, it is important because I simply cannot perform. I tried also sometimes, for example, I have very clear things that I don't take calls after 8 p.m. my time because it is kind of impossible for me to take calls after the time and be productive. I just know it.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't do it. That's my choice. Sometimes I lose clients for that, right? I very big clients that I would love to work with. And as soon as they hear that, they're like, sorry, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. The value of my own mental health is more important than anything else for me. And that's something that I try to do. And, Barcelona in Europe is also probably the capital of the lifestyle entrepreneurship because it's similar to San Francisco in US, to LA, San Diego, probably. It's very California style. It's a city on the beach and it's laid back, but at the same time, there is still entrepreneurship compared to other places in Spain, as an example. So it is a very interesting environment to come and create that. And because of the company I worked for before, and because of my drive, because of my thing, it's important to be in an environment that I'm reminded that lifestyle is important.
Right.
So I work my 10 hours a day to make sure that I do my things, but also make sure also that I have some guardrails. Because
That's amazing.
yeah, it's definitely fundamental for me to perform, frankly. It's not that I do that because I want to chill. I really need to chill to perform. Yeah.
That sounds good. Alessio, as we come to the end of this conversation, I want to ask you, you've shared a lot of nuggets of information. And is there like one sort of philosophy in life that you try to follow that might apply to personal life, to professional life, but could be something to leave this audience with? That would be great to hear.
Well, the philosophy I always say is always be growing. There was this famous movie where they were talking about always be selling, and to me, it's always be growing. In life, there is a lot of moments where things don't go your way. You can use blame in those moments, or you can use it as, okay, great, what can I learn from this? Before Mindvalley, I didn't have a lot of great leaders in the companies I was working for. And question I was asking myself was, great, what did I learn that I will not apply when I will be a leader?
Yeah.
Right? And making treasure also of the bad experience is so important for you to make sure that you can take things with it. And I never lose, I always learn. And that's what I try to remind myself. If you always be growing, you'll never lose.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And on those lines, I remember a few times friends of mine would bring up like how they have a terrible manager and so on. And I used to tell them that while that is hard, it also teaches you what kind of manager to never be when you get into that role, right? And till we sort of experience some of that, we don't know that, okay, this is something I should never become. And if I become that, I have to keep myself in check because my team is going to start feeling the same thing I'm feeling today. All right, Alessio, it was great talking to you. Thank you so much for taking out time. I think there's so much valuable information here. Thank you so much for sharing your journey.
It's been fantastic.
And that wraps up today's episode. Before we sign off, I would like to thank you for your support and thanks for tuning in. If you loved today's episode, then don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. Be kind, be happy, challenge the norm. I'll see you folks again for the next one.